Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion. I'm your host, Dr. Franklin Rule, and today we're going to ask if fairies and elves were possibly ETs, investigate the death of George Superman Reeves, tell you the truth about scalping, reveal secrets concerning this little critter right here, the poison dart frog, and also investigate the mysterious plains of Nazca down in South America. But first, is it possible that fairies and elves were actually extraterrestrial beings? Throughout all cultures, throughout all times, we've had reports of fairies and elves. In Scandinavia, they're called the trolls. In Ireland, the leprechauns. In Indonesia, the tuyuls. And up in Alaska, the Nanuliks. There's actually a great deal of similarity between accounts of fairies and elves and UFOs and ETs. Fairies and elves throughout history have been described as of diminutive size. Similarly, the most common description of ETs is that of midget humanoids, a true similarity. There are many instances of ETs being reported as little green men. There also just happens to be one type of forest fairy which has green skin. Consider levitation. Fairies and elves have always been described as being able to levitate objects, animals, human beings, and even themselves. Analogously, many UFO abductees report actually being levitated from their beds into a waiting UFO, and report that the aliens aboard the craft are sometimes able to float through space. Finally, consider fairy rings, the rings in which fairies supposedly sing and dance, and within which nothing can grow. We have similar reports of so-called saucer nests, which in essence are large fairy rings, that is, circular indentations left in the ground by UFOs. In light of all of these similarities, I certainly think it is possible that fairies and elves were actually ETs. When we return, a probe into the strange death of George Superman Reeves. Stay tuned. Don't go away. Welcome back, and time now for the probe into George Reeves' death. But first, the trivia question of the day for you. Let me extricate here from its paper prison. The question: which well-known 1939 movie was George Superman Reeves' film debut? The prize, one pat on the back, if and only if you get the correct answer. I'll take a sip of water and be back momentarily with the correct answer. Okay, time is up. Again, in which film did George Reeves make his film debut? It was none other than Gone with the Wind, in which he portrayed a man named Brent Tarleton, one of Scarlett O'Hara's many suitors. Now, recently there's been a great deal of PR about the death of the comic book Superman at the hands of an alien creature known as Doomsday. But back on Tuesday, June 16th, 1959, the fans of the TV Superman were shocked at the real-life death of George Reeves. At the time, it was even more shocking because that death was labeled a suicide. Now, some said that Reeves was unhappy because the series had not been renewed, and he was depressed because he was typecast. He referred to his costume as a monkey suit. On the other hand, the series had actually been renewed for another season. Could he have been murdered rather than this being a suicide? Well, top-notch detective Milo Spiriglio of the Nick Harris Detectives, second oldest detective agency in America, personally investigated this case. Let's hear what he has to say about it.
Who shot Superman? That became a mystery that we was not able to solve at the beginning part of the probe. We know Superman certainly didn't do it. Years later, we discovered that there was one or more persons involved in the homicide. George Reeves was married, or about to marry, a socialite. At the same time, he had another girlfriend by the name of Toni Mannix. She was married to a noted person in the movie industry who had gangster connections. We strongly suspect that he either directly or indirectly ordered the hit on George Reeves. Strange, right after George dies, his will, written shortly before his death, left the entire $71,000 estate to his girlfriend, Toni Mannix, not to his fiancée. After George died, the mother decided not to bury the body, but had it frozen. And it was taken by train from Los Angeles, where a second autopsy was performed. She never suspected that George would have taken his own life. He talked to her just hours before the death and said everything was going in his favor, and he had everything to live for. You know, Doctor, I'm not one that really believes in ghosts, but I have some doubts in this particular case. At the house where George Reeves died, numerous persons have reported that the house was haunted immediately after his death, that they've seen chairs move at times, chandeliers move, and a lot of eyewitnesses even claim to see the ghost of George Reeves naked, holding a German Luger in his hand, screaming, "I was murdered." That's what they say.
Thank you, Milo, for your insights into this case. May I say that I've interviewed a number of other people associated with the Superman series, and most have remained non-committal. However, Robert Shane, the actor who portrayed Inspector Bill Henderson on the series for many years, told me before his death that he believed Reeves was murdered. He said that a plasterer had told him that he had patched up several bullet holes in Reeves' home after his death. Personally, I think there's a 98% chance that George Reeves was murdered, that he did not commit suicide. Now, to dispel the myth that Indians invented scalping. No, it was the white man. Now, scalping actually dates back to 11th century England with a man known as Godwin of Essex. He began to offer bounties for the scalps of his enemies. And you can see this was quite practical. For example, it's difficult to cart in a load of full-fledged corpses. It's also difficult to carry around, say, a basket full of heads that you've taken. But taking a man's scalp, first of all, kills him, and secondly, it's very easy to carry such as in a bag. Now, when English and Dutch settlers arrived in the New World, they began to offer frontiersmen bounties for Indian scalps because they wanted to push the frontier westward. During the French and Indian War, General Edward Braddock offered $1,000 for the scalp of the Indian leader Chinguk and $25 for each French soldier's scalp. Whites continued to take Indian scalps even into the 1800s, taking even the scalps of the fierce Apaches. In retaliation, some Indians began to scalp the whites, such as the Iroquois. But remember, the next time you see a Western movie, the Indians did not invent scalping. Now traveling to outer space and the search for a black hole. Recently, NASA released photos from the Hubble telescope of a purported black hole. It's in the center of a galaxy, NGC 4261, some 45 million light years away in the Virgo cluster of galaxies. Now, a black hole is a misnomer. It's actually a black sphere. Black holes originate from massive stars about 10 times the size of our own sun. When they die, they implode, shooting off a shell of matter. But the center is highly dense. Its gravity draws in all matter around it. The center of each galaxy actually is believed to harbor a black hole. Fortunately, our solar system is located in the galactic boondocks, actually in the spiral wings of our Milky Way galaxy. Any planets near the center harboring advanced civilizations have to worry, because those civilizations ultimately will be drawn into that gravitationally powerful core and destroyed. Black holes are no joke. Now, when we return, secrets about the poison dart frog. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to Mysteries, and now from the world of nature, the secrets of the poison dart frog. These colorful little frogs actually inhabit Central and South America in countries such as Nicaragua, Colombia, Bolivia, and Brazil. There are 120 species, and they all share one characteristic. They, through their skins, secrete poisons. Those poisons can cause anything from mild nausea to instant death. Indians in those areas actually will tip their darts for blowguns with those poisons. For example, the Choco Indians of Colombia will rub the back of this little yellow frog, put the dart in a blowgun, and shoot a howling monkey. It dies within 1 or 2 minutes. That's one of their favorite dishes. But they're always careful never themselves to touch the back of the frog because they do not want to absorb the deadly poison. Now, another amazing fact about these little frogs, they're very paternal. When a tadpole is born, both the mother and the father will escort it down to the water. And if the mother sees it's not getting enough to eat, she'll actually deposit unfertilized eggs in the water for the little fellow to eat. In essence, he's eating his unborn brothers and sisters. How about that? Now, for the curse of the Paris Opera. The year 1848. The opera was Henry Purcell's Charles II, the lead tenor, Eugene Maison. During the singing of the opera, he sang, "Oh God, crush him," and randomly pointed to the ceiling. A workman situated on the rafters immediately fell to his death. Mazel was a bit disturbed by this. So the next night, he decided not to take any chances. When he again sang the line, "Oh God, crush him," he pointed to an empty seat in the second row. But moments later, a late arriving patron sat in that seat and keeled over, dying of a heart attack. That really disturbed Mazel. So the next night, he decided, when he sang the line, "Oh God, crush him," he pointed down to the floor. But he's actually pointing into the orchestra pit. You guessed it. One of the players there died on the spot. The management said no more. They closed the opera, and it was not again performed there. That's the curse of the Paris Opera House. Up next, the world of bizarre medicine. As you know, I'm a PhD, not an MD, but I've always been intrigued by bizarre medicine. Let's see what's in the little black bag today. A Scotch wool scarf. This reminds me of the strange case of the Scottish brothers, a case of twinning gone wrong. Now, surprisingly, geneticists do not understand the twinning process very well. However, Dr. Judith Hall at the University of British Columbia recently formulated the following hypothesis, namely, that an embryo will sense sometimes that certain cells are abnormal and eject them. Usually, they're simply absorbed by the body. But in a few cases, the body heals them and they go on to form a second identical twin. This occurs in approximately 1 out of every 150 live births. In other cases, those abnormal cells may remain within the embryo and go on to form what are called Siamese twins. And in a very rare case, you may have those cells even forming less of an individual. That is, you'll have the case of one body and two heads. That's what we have with the Scottish brothers who were born near the end of the 15th century in the Scottish lowlands. Fortunately, they were not treated as freaks, but rather taken into the castle of King James III, who actually had them educated in the arts and sciences. They even performed at court, such as musical numbers. The two heads often were heard arguing, but they loved one another. Tragically, at age 28, one of the heads died. The other one was heard mournfully crying throughout the castle, perhaps not only because he lost his best friend, but because he also sensed that his own death was also imminent. Indeed, 5 days later, he too died. The strange case of the Scottish brothers, for your consideration. When we return, the enigmatic plains of Nazca down in South America. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. Time now for the enigmatic plains of Nazca. They're located in Peru. Their dimensionality, 37 miles long, 1 mile wide. Now, in 1952, archaeologists discovered an amazing array of gargantuan paintings there, including those of mammals, birds, and insects, and various geometric patterns such as lines and circles. For example, there is a spider on the plains of Nazca 150 feet long. That's the equivalent of a 15-story building. We have a 40-foot-long hummingbird. There are other animals in geometric figures, angles, and triangles, and even some lines similar to those in modern-day airports. The intriguing fact is that none of these figures can be seen from the ground. Their full glory is aloft, high above the ground. Moreover, when entering the Bay of Pisco, one immediately sees on a mountain wall an 820-foot-high trident. Now that is pointing to the plains of Nazca on the other side of the mountain. The theory is that Indians from this region, hundreds of years ago, created these figures so that aliens would see them after having contacted them. Or perhaps the aliens encouraged, even helped the natives produce these figures as markers. As landing guides, some say the Indians created them for the gods to see. But ufologists claim that those gods were actually ETs. The enigma of the Nazca drawings is truly a mystery from beyond the other dominion. So, were these enormous drawings signposts for alien spacecraft or something of a less significant nature? You decide. Now, if you have a question or answer for us, or perhaps a photo of a UFO, ET, ghost, or Bigfoot creature, Call us at our toll-free 800 number. That's 1-800-45-RULE, RUEHL. Now, until next time, may the power of the universe be with you.